The true test of any champion is defending your championship. Of course, the amount of time spent as a champion comes into consideration as well. However, a champion that defends their title once a year is not nearly as impressive as someone that defends it night after night. This week, we get to see NWA television champion Tully Blanchard defend his championship yet again. Will he be able to hold on to it? Well, let's find out. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself. It is July 21st, 1984. Last week, all anyone could talk about was Black Saturday, an attempt by Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation to violently take over NWA programming. In this case, World Championship Wrestling, which would eventually become and be renamed as Georgia Championship Wrestling under McMahon's regime. Besides that, the biggest news coming out of the NWA was the fact that United States Heavyweight Champion Chief Wahoo McDaniel had his championship stripped away from him unceremoniously by those snakes in the NWA Board of Directors. I'm so angry with the NWA right now that we're going to rip it off like a band-aid and tune into Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling first, where Bob Caudle greets us on commentary for a tag team match between Angelo Mosca Jr., Pistol Pez Whatley, taking on the Masked Outlaw and his manager, Gary Hart. One good thing to note about the NWA here is that they have taken the steps forward to ensure that their referees actually look like referees, rather than some rando guy that they picked out of the crowd willing to work for $1. It's not touched on by Caudle, but I assume it happened at an untelevised event. Somehow, Angelo Mosca Jr. has regained the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship from the man that he's currently across the ring from in the Masked Outlaw. The new champion actually does manage to get the better of the former champion before tagging in the Pistol, who also manages to stay on top of the Masked Outlaw. Retreating back to his corner, the Masked Outlaw gets a temporary reprieve and also some time to strategize with Hart. An errant elbow from the Masked Outlaw catches Angelo as he's tagged back in before he's tossed outside of the ring, so Gary Hart goes over in an attempt to help him back in by slamming him shoulder first into the ring post. Angelo Mosca Jr. then desperately tries to go to the top rope and attempts a crossbody on the Masked Outlaw, but misses. Hart is then tagged in, but his experience is not currently in the ring, it's managing those within it. And so he ends up in a figure 4 leg lock. Chaos erupts. The Masked Outlaw goes for his trusty whip to help the manager in distress. However, Pistol Pez Whatley wrestles it from him and turns the tables, using the whip on both the Masked Outlaw and Gary Hart. This all happens while the referee calls for a disqualification. However, the referee really should be reversing the decision here and awarding the match to the Masked Outlaw and Gary Hart. I want Angelo Mosca Jr. and Pistol Pez Whatley fined and suspended. Backstage, Bob Caudle has the television champion, Tully Blanchard, standing by for an interview. And Mr. Blanchard informs us what I've already told you. He will be defending his championship tonight, while also going on to remind everybody that his $10,000 is still on the line. Who will be challenging for the championship as well as a chance at 10 grand? Don't worry, what's the rush? You'll find out soon enough. Who asked this crooked clown to come out here? Jim Crockett Jr. thinks just because he owns the place that he can come out here and do and say whatever he wants, with that devious little look that he always has on his face. Evil, that's what this man exudes. Jimbo announces that the NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Pride of the Carolinas Don Kernodle and the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff, as well as the Youngblood, Jay, who's competing as the Renegade currently, and his brother Marky Mark Youngblood, have been fined and placed on final warning. This comes as a result of the actions taken recently when the Youngbloods ambushed the NWA World Tag Team Champions at the end of one of their matches. Crockett Jr. then makes it very clear that any further violation of the rules, what rules? will result in both teams being suspended. The blame lies on the Youngbloods. This is outrageous! Jimbo then touches on the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship controversy, inferring that there may be a tournament to crown the new champion. Another outrageous decision. Chief Wahoo McDaniel did nothing wrong. He is the champion. Jim Crockett Jr. just makes my blood boil. But thankfully, I can cool off with another interview. And this time, Bob Caudle is talking to the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, who immediately says that he's upset with Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Don't you start, Dream. Rhodes then states that his next goal in the NWA, specifically Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, is to become the next NWA United States Heavyweight Champion. Then he goes on to say something else, however, it's just literal gibberish.
Now it's a time of this country. It means more than anything in the world because it's unity. And Dusty Rhodes now making a personal crusade throughout this country.
David Dillinger is in singles competition next, and his opponent? It's Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, who is absolutely rabid in this match. Sawyer absolutely mauls Dillinger, fighting him all over again and again, in between strangling David. A nasty power slam results in the 1-2-3 for the Mad Dog. Our current NWA World Tag Team Champions, Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff, are competing in a non-title tag team match next against Gary Quartinelli and Vinnie Valentino. Ivan Koloff's nephew Nikita stands in the corner to support his uncle as well as Don Kernodle. The NWA World Tag Team Champions are always impressive, and they continue to be impressive in this match. Kernodle puts Quartinelli in a backslide pin, but the referee refuses to do the count for some reason, probably paid off by Jimbo Crockett Jr., loser. Similarly to his opponents, Vinnie Valentino is almost always equally as impressive, and he as well is impressive in this match, often surprising and outpacing his opponents with his superior athleticism and agility. Quartinelli is the weak link of his team, something that the NWA World Tag Team Champions quickly identify, and thus Gary Quartinelli becomes the latest victim to the cannon, securing the World Tag Team Champions the W. The new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, Angelo Mosca Jr., is backstage next, being interviewed by Bob Caudle.
You know, I should just take a minute to reflect back on rules, ethics of sports. You know, what's happened to that?
You tell me, you son of a vigilante. Now that he's 3 times NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, the championship means even more to Angelo than it ever has before, and he makes a vow to keep it this time, especially with his upcoming opponent, Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. Oh, Angelo, you had such a promising career ahead of you. The NWA Television Championship is on the line next, and the champion, Tully Blanchard, defends against someone of such high quality and caliber that he may even have troubles keeping up. Someone that has an esteemed professional wrestling background with such amazing accolades. Who is it, you might ask? Sam Houston. If Houston can beat Tully Blanchard within that 20-minute time limit, not only will he walk away as the new NWA Television Champion, but he gets that $10,000 as well. Sam manages to get the upper hand on Tully Blanchard as the match begins, but it's not long before the television champion turns the tables and goes to work on Sam Houston. After the most intense and grueling 5-star match I've ever seen in my entire life, Tully Blanchard walks away still the NWA Television Champion following a catapult suplex. Have the subtitles on standby because Bob Caudle is once again having a word with the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, considering half of the last interview was unintelligible. Apparently, the American Dream's disappointment with Chief Wahoo McDaniel has risen so much in the last 10 minutes that he can no longer contain himself.
and the many fans that cheered for you, Wahoo McDaniel, and paid to see the greatest Indian star turn yellow right live on national TV. So now then, we know your face. You're a one-eyed jack in this town, Daddy.
Don't get angry at Chief McDaniel because he has a greater grasp of the English language than you do, Dusty. The problem with you lies within. Another team suffering from being put on final warning are the Youngbloods, the Renegade, and Mark. They are taking on the team of Allie Bay and Bobby Bass next. And I only wonder how long it's going to take for Mark to screw things up again. It's less than 20 seconds into the match before Mark misses a dropkick on Bay, which forces him to retreat to the safety of his corner and the superior skill of his brother. The Renegade gets tagged in, and he manages to wrestle control of the match back in his team's favor, until Mark then gets tagged back in and becomes his opponent's plaything. The Renegade has to get tagged back in again and come to the rescue of his idiotic and unskilled brother. If he were a more selfish man, the Renegade would secure these wins for himself, considering he's really the only reason that he and Marky Mark come away with any kind of win. No, instead, he's too much of a nice guy, and he lets his brother get the pin, despite the fact that Mark contributed nothing positive to the match itself. Youngbloods, you guys suck, and you're both losers. We're backstage once again, and Bob Caudle tries to have a word with Paul Jones, Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, and both of the assassins, number 1 and number 3. I say try because as much as the Mad Dog is a rabid animal in the ring, he speaks like he is also a rabid animal outside of it as well.
That's right, you're looking at the Mad Dog. My reputation precedes me.
What I can discern from his howling and screaming is that he cannot wait for the opportunity to dethrone Angelo Mosca Jr. as the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion. Moving on to Assassin number 1, he says that he is getting incredibly impatient and wants to finish the war with the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant as soon as possible, before going on to challenge him to a taped fist match.
And there isn't a man alive that can beat me when I tape these hands up.
That's a match for those with only the thickest skulls. Only less humane than that is a bare-knuckle boxing match. It's perfect for Jimmy Valiant. An ally of the Boogie Woogie Maniac in his circus of clowns, Mr. Personality himself, Brian Adidas, comes out next to speak to Bob Caudle. Adidas takes aim at Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer and mentions to Caudle as well as us that when Brian was first breaking into the wrestling industry down in Florida, Buzz Sawyer was one of his primary adversaries, having fought against him multiple times. After a particularly brutal match, Adidas walked away with burns on his face as well as a dislocated shoulder from the Mad Dog himself. You know, that explains a lot. Why you're so ugly and why you suck in the ring. Brian then goes on to say that he's much more experienced now, more experienced even than Buzz Sawyer.
But I now am the more experienced wrestler.
That's not how that works, Brian. You cannot say that you are more experienced, you moron, than someone who has been in the industry longer than you, as well as accumulated more success than you can ever hope to. The main event of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling is a tag team match between the Assassins number 1 and number 3, managed by, of course, Paul Jones, taking on Bret Hart and Keith Larsen. A strike from Assassin number 1's taped fist earns his team a lightning-fast victory. See? Brutal. To finish Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling off, Bob Caudle is standing by with exotic Adrian Street and his valet, Miss Linda. Street has drawn a picture of both Paul Jones and the Assassins. But you know what's funny? They're in dresses. Oh, that's so funny, Adrian. You are so hilarious. Jimmy Valiant and Dusty Rhodes emerge in an attempt to save this train wreck of an interview, and Jimmy Valiant mentions that he accepts Assassin number 1's challenge for a taped fist match. put the women and children to bed because that's going to be a violent one, folks. With the corruption of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance itself behind us, it's time to tune into the World Wrestling Federation and its ever-growing empire with Championship Wrestling. Vince McMahon and that New Zealand nightmare, Tony Garea, greet us on commentary. And this makes sense. For those of you that have been following my regular weekly episodes and the special ones, specifically with regards to Tuesday Night Titans, in a recent interview, Garea mentioned he would like to try his hand at color commentary. Hopefully, he won't be as bad on commentary as he is in the ring. Nick DeCarlo and Special Delivery Jones are taking on the WWF World Tag Team Champions in Dick Murdoch and Adrian Adonis in a non-title match to start Championship Wrestling off. Adonis starts things off for his team, but Jones manages to get the better of him, leading to Murdoch getting tagged in. ST Jones is on a roll and he gets a headbutt on Murdoch. Nick DeCarlo thinks that he can ride the wave of success that Jones has made for him, so he blindly tags himself into the match. This proves to be a fatal mistake for his team, as the WWF World Tag Team Champions double team him and secure the win for themselves. Next up is a singles match between Jose Luis Rivera and, wait, Kamala? Yes! That can be none other than Kamala, who is led to the ring by his handler Friday and Ayatollah Blassie, albeit without his traditional Iranian garb. What is Kamala doing in the WWF? Is he so uncontrollable that not even Paul Jones could keep him in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling? That's just scary. The Ugandan toys with Jose Luis Rivera, who is probably regretting his choice of career at this moment in time, before the Ugandan gets 2 splashes on Jose's back before getting the 1, 2, 3. WWF locker room, you are on notice. Vince McMahon brings us another edition of the WWF Update, and this time it focuses once more on Sergeant Slaughter. According to Vince, the Marine makes an annual trip to Washington, D.C. That is the capital of the United States for anybody who's been living under a rock on Mars with fingers in their ears and eyes closed, and also, particularly, the White House, before he goes on to say about the Cobra Corps Commandant,
Sergeant Slaughter held in high esteem indeed by anyone who's truly a great American.
It's closer than ever. The match between Wendy Richter and WWF Women's Champion, the Fabulous Moolah, is right around the corner. Roddy Piper, on Captain Lou Albano's behalf, infers that unless Wendy Richter starts watching her mouth and her behavior, something bad may happen to her. He's not wrong. This is professional wrestling, and anything can happen at any time to any competitor. No matter who the winner is, Roddy Piper promises that they will appear on the very next edition of Piper's Pit. Turning his attention to his own personal matters, Hot Rod then reads us a letter that was recently sent to him, and it focuses on Jimmy Superfly Snuka, who has vowed revenge, brother, for the actions the Scotsman took on him with regards to a certain coconut on Piper's Pit recently. The letter's author begs Roddy Piper, please don't beat up Jimmy Snuka anymore.
Please do not beat him up anymore, because he is a great man, and he is hurt. Sometimes he cries at night.
Only for it to be revealed that the letter was written by Jimmy Snuka's son. Here's what Roddy Piper has to say about that.
You take your daddy, man, because I am.
The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling and the week is another tag team match, and this time it is between the team of Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung-Lee taking on the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika. The match is joined in progress, with Lee under the control of the Samoans. Mr. Fuji isn't eager to be tagged in, and rightly so. A headbutt from Afa knocks him silly. Mr. Fuji, however, is wily and clever, and he manages to daze the Samoan before he heads up to the top rope. He unfortunately misses a leg drop, which returns control of the match to the Wild Samoans. Tiger Chung-Lee then gets tagged back in, and like his partner before him, attempts to go to the top rope, but he's caught and thrown down to the mat. Lee desperately tries to get a tag to his partner, but Mr. Fuji refuses.
No tag! He was reaching for a tag!
Hold on, wait a minute.
Fuji hung him out to dry.
He heads backstage. Tiger Chung-Lee is on his own. A double headbutt from Alpha and Sika secures them the win. However, Mr. Fuji is not heartless, and he returns to the ring in an effort to help his tag team partner backstage.
Fuji has taken the microphone cord and has wrapped it around the neck of Tiger Chung-Lee.
You were always a disappointment, Tiger Chung-Lee. How could you let Mr. Fuji down in such a way? You deserved what you got. With that, we come to the end of another week. And in the WWF, we saw Tony Garea mumble his way in an effort to salvage what's left of his pro wrestling career on color commentary, while the team of Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung-Lee seemingly imploded on itself. In the NWA, television champion Tully Blanchard once more successfully defended his championship. Brian Adidas and Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer exchanged award words, and Jimmy Valiant agreed to face Assassin Number 1 in a taped fist match. A winning champion, a defending champion, a successful champion. All of these attributes can be used to describe Tully Blanchard. Prior to Tully Blanchard, the television championship was defended poorly by Mark Youngblood, who either won by the skin of his teeth or with the help of his brother Jay the Renegade Youngblood. Ever since beating Marky Mark and becoming the television champion, Tully Blanchard has gone on to prove that not only can he talk the talk, but he can walk the walk as well. He only lets the best challenge him for the NWA Television Championship, and he continuously proves that he has what it takes to elevate himself and that championship to new heights. And that's how you cement a legacy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget you can like the video, hit the bell, and subscribe so you're always notified of when a new episode is released. As well, I have 2 social media accounts that you can follow where you'll find plenty of fun wrestling business for you to check out there, and as well I hope you'll share it with your family and friends. That's it for me for this week. I'll see you next week. So long for now. I'm so angry with the National Wrestling Alliance as of late that we're gonna tombstone pile drive them right to the freaking depths of hell. And Jimmy Valiant said that he accepts Assassin Number 1's taped fist match say that fast. Taped fist match challenge. There we go. Apparently the American Dream's disappointment with that's all folks.